Kia ora e te whanau. Our wild ride with COVID-19 continues, and it really has been a journey into the wild, and it will be for a while yet, it seems, with a few ups and downs and bumps along the way. So our theme for the year, Journeying into the Wild, is right on point, which is a little bit unfortunate, but also maybe kind of wonderful at the same time. You'll know that the metaphor of life as a journey is pretty much as old as the hills. And as we heard last week, a journey with a sacred or holy purpose is called a pilgrimage. While Vic drew quite tight lines around his 10-year pilgrim experience or becoming aware of himself as a pilgrim, I'm inviting us to consider that our life, our entire life, is the journey with a sacred or holy purpose, and that we're all pilgrims, whether we care to think of it that way or not. We are on hikoi, destination unknown other than we're journeying towards God. And everyone is on that journey. In this part, prior to Lent and Easter, our focus is on packing our bags as a way of inviting us to consider how prepared we are for this spiritual journey which is embedded in our ordinary everyday life. I am an ace packer. I am not the woman whose bag is ridiculously overweight, stuffed with things I'll never need. Example: for 10 weeks in Europe, living in a tent, my bag weighed 11 kilograms, and that included my sleeping bag and mattress and 5 different pairs of shoes. I hope you are impressed. You should be. I covered all bases, from the opera and art galleries to walking 20 kilometres around old city streets, beaches in Barcelona and the Côte d'Azur, ultra-long haul flights, standing in queues and living in campgrounds. Let me tell you, you need more than one pair of shoes for that. Packing our bags well means finding out from others what the conditions are likely to be. Preparing for changes in the weather or circumstances, and that usually means having food to fall back on and clothing to layer up. The walk you heard about last week from Vic that we did in Spain, the pilgrimage there, was a daily act of faith that there would be enough beds at the pilgrim hostel at the end of the day, but if not, we could layer up our clothes, hop into our sleeping bags and find a doorway to sleep in. It never was necessary, and to be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed because that would have been an adventure. On hikes in New Zealand, it's very changeable, isn't it? Hypothermia is a risk at all times of year on some of our walks. So food is the ultimate protection for hypothermia. Calories keep your brain going so you can then put on the right clothes and make good decisions, such as staying put or not attempting to cross a river that's in flood. It's a bit of a shift then, moving from tourist to hiker, and another shift again from tourist to pilgrim. And here's the key distinction between tourists and pilgrims. This became a bit of a mantra for us when we were on that walk in Spain. So here it is. Tourists demand, pilgrims give thanks. This is the pilgrim ethic in a nutshell. Right now, you can tell if you're a pilgrim or a tourist. What made you cranky today? And what part did your expectations or demands play in feeling like that? What could you have given thanks for in that situation? Now you think about it. Here are a few more thoughts about tourists and pilgrims from people who've done quite a lot of pilgrimage. Tourists are taking time off. Pilgrims are attempting to start a new life, or at least leave their old life behind. So a desire for holiday and a desire for a new life are two quite different things. To start a new life, you have to put a lot of things down rather than just putting them on hold. A pilgrimage asks you to let go of the things which make you look good or feel good in order to find better things. Tourists pay for services. Pilgrims bear each other's burdens. Well, pilgrims pay for things too. It's not really fair to say it's either or, and tourists will help each other as well. But pilgrims are interested in what it feels like to carry this pack, to sleep among the snorers, to walk for hours instead of catching a ride. It's immersive. The journey is the point, rather than paying for an Uber to get to the next place faster, to cram more experiences in. Tourists are a crowd. Pilgrims are a community. Overseas, pilgrims are often recognisable. They're the people with packs on suburban streets or in locations where there's nothing really of interest. They're found in cafes and churches and the spaces in between. They light candles in churches, even if that's what they would normally do. They might not know they are a pilgrim until they do something like that. Pilgrims greet each other on the road. They know a lot about blisters. They sometimes have faces sunburned on one side only from walking for weeks in one direction. This doesn't happen to tourists. Tourists have an itinerary. Pilgrims don't know if they'll make it to the next hostel. So a pilgrim plans for the journey for sure, but holds those plans lightly. And that means that illness or injury or other things that might thwart the itinerary are understood as, oh, well, that's part of my pilgrimage. And everyone's pilgrimage is different, even though they're walking the same route. This makes room for acceptance and process. Gratitude, not demands. Some pilgrims lose God along the way of their life journey and then find God again. This is normal. I'm thinking now of Mary and Joseph on their pilgrimage to Jerusalem with their hapu. The whole community would hit the road every year for this journey on foot, flogging up the mountain to the city on the hill, Jerusalem. Jesus was 12, he's drawn to the temple and is so absorbed that he loses track of time, and he's AWOL for 3 days. His parents frantically search among all their family and friends. They make their way all the way back to their home village and discover actually that he is not there. And they have to return to Jerusalem to look for him. And when they find him, he's different. It's only been 3 days, but he's grown. You can read this story in Luke's Gospel, chapter 2. Jesus, of course, is God. And in this one story from his childhood, we experience with his parents and his family what it's like to have Jesus, God, then lose him and be angry and frantic and anxious about that, and then find him again. So as part of our kai, kōrero and karakia rhythm for the COVID level that we're in, we have some questions now just to prompt some reflection and some discussion together. How do you react to the idea of losing God and finding God again? What is your experience of having Jesus, losing him and finding him again? And in that, what has changed? Who do you know him to be now? How have you changed since then? When have you been angry with God for disappearing? And what did you notice in that part about tourists and pilgrims? Was there anything that stood out to you? And if you can't remember anything else, remember this. Tourists demand, pilgrims give thanks. Te pai me te rangimārie e te whanau. Peace and all good to you all. Enjoy the time together.